Dr. Roop now approached me, with Charles, Niana, and me son trailing him. They looked like they were in shock, and when I went to meet Charles's gaze, he turned away. They looked back, but Dr. Roop walked up to me, holding a black box about the size of a hardcover book made out of something like stiff cardboard.
"As you know, this is yours," he said. "I forgot to pack it up and put it in your bags."
I'd never seen it before, but I could tell by how he was looking at me he wanted me to have it, and that he was afraid if we said anything else the peace officers might notice, so I took the box and held it with both hands. "Thanks," I muttered, too distracted to make sense of what the box meant.
"I'm very sorry, Zeke. You did everything I could have asked of you. All of you were just what we hoped for, and that this should be a reward is so unjust. I will do what I can do to reverse things from here."
"Do you think that you can?" I asked.
"I don't know anymore. I just don't know. But I can promise you, I will help your father."
Hands were on me now, leading me and Charles, and me son and Niana towards our own shuttle. Everyone's eyes were cast down. We were sad and angry, and maybe they were angry with me. Maybe they had every right to be. A quartet of peace officers approached us, each of them holding a black injector cylinder. This was it then. They were going to neutralize our improvements. They were going to turn us back into ordinary people. The 3 other humans presented their hands for injection, but Dr. Roop blocked the peace officers, heading to me.
"He's my friend," he said. "Please allow me to do it."
The peace officer nodded and handed him the cylinder. Dr. Roop then gestured, waving someone over. It was Captain Quassel, followed by Urch. The 2 of them came over.
"Excuse us, Captain," said one of the peace officers. "He needs to be injected and removed from the premises."
"Will you prevent me from saying goodbye to my friend?" she asked.
"Briefly, then,"
the peace officer said.
"There is a schedule."
I looked at the captain. "Do not let them return those phatic ships," I said.
"No, I won't."
Urch reached out and took the black box from my hand. My first instinct was to snatch it back, and he must have seen my alarm, so he met my gaze as if to steady me. Then he gestured towards the captain with his head, as if I should continue the conversation. He, meanwhile, was running one of his sharp fingernails along the bottom of the box. Carving something? I had no idea. I looked at the captain. My father is worried that the Fads were looking for some form of tech. He thinks it might be some kind of specialized military skill tree. Will you talk to him about it? She nodded.
"I will."
"Thank you for everything," I said. "When I get home, I'm going to tell my mother about you. She's going to be so glad you were here to look after me."
"I think I'm the one who should be glad there was someone looking after me,"
she said. She took me in her arms and gave me a huge hug. She felt warm and safe, but I knew it was all being taken away. "Can you help her?" I asked. "Tamret?" She looked over at all the data collectors, who were recording every word we spoke.
"I'm sorry," she told me. "She's outside Confederation space. There's nothing I can do."
The words were harsh and cold, but there was something about her gaze, when she spoke, that made me wonder if she was trying to tell me something. Was that too much to hope?
"Time to go,"
the peace officer said. Urch handed the box back to me, and then put a hand on my shoulder.
"Safe travels, my friend."
The 2 of them walked away. Dr. Roop shook my hand, human style. He looked down at me with his big, yellow giraffe eyes, and I felt sure he was trying to tell me something, just like the captain had been, but I couldn't read it. Then he put one of his hands to my face. A curiously tender gesture, one I hadn't anticipated.
Remember,
he said. I wanted to ask what I was supposed to remember, but I couldn't make the words come out.
I need your hand.
Dr. Roop said. So I held it out.
Your father used to say that there are always possibilities.
Yeah, I croaked. He would say that, wouldn't he?
Have a safe journey.
Then he pressed the injector into the back of my hand, and I began the process of turning back into someone of absolutely no importance. Wordlessly, Dr. Roop shook my hand again, and then the four of us were led to our gate. We passed through the door, and then through a tunnel, and then onto a shuttle. When it launched, we would leave Confederation Central, and we were never to return again. A peace officer stood by the shuttle door, making sure we strapped in.
In a few minutes, your nanites will dissolve into harmless organic matter that will pass safely through your system. This means that your translators will not function. The crew on the ship taking you home knows this, and they will do their best to communicate to you what you need to know.
He held out his hand.
I need your data bracelets.
Once he had them in hand, he stepped outside, and the shuttle door whined close. My three companions sat, all of them looking down. I wanted to say something, but what was there to say? I looked at the rest. Charles' face was set in stony resolve. Diana was crying. Miss-Sun looked like she wanted to kill someone. My fellow humans said nothing during the voyage. I sat still, not looking out the window, feeling myself diminish, becoming something less. My sight and hearing were the most obvious, but I had less power, less energy. My muscles seemed to work differently. I was like a deflating balloon. I was now simply Zeke Reynolds. Nothing more. When we reached the ship, a stick insect led us to our quarters with a series of gestures. He made an eating gesture and pointed to a door down the hall, and then left. It had nothing more to say to us. I turned to go into my room.
No one blames you.
It was Miss-Sun. She stood there, still looking furious, with her arms folded. Her English was accented, but quite good, actually.
We are all angry, but not with you. We chose to go with you because it was the right thing. We all did the right thing.
Thanks, I told her. I appreciate you saying so.
They punished us, she said. But that doesn't change the fact that we did something important. We made a difference for trillions of beings. Thank you for letting us do that with you.
I was too stunned to speak, so I simply nodded.
You probably wish to be alone,
Charles said.
I understand that, but if you want company, we'll be in the common room. If it's the same layout as the other ship, it should be that one, there.
He pointed. Thanks, I said again, but I'll just lie down for a little while.
If you change your mind, you know where to find us,
he said. Diana, who had said nothing, gave me a very quick and awkward hug. I turned away from them and went into my cabin. As I sat alone, looking out the view screen, holding the dark cardboard box in my hand, I couldn't bring myself to lower my eyes, so the station receded, and I watched the swirling clouds of the great gas giant, their beautiful hues as they wound their slow way across the planet's vast surface. The station grew smaller until it was hard to see the details, until the dome was indistinguishable from the metal, until it was no more than a tiny disc, a slim coin cast against the vastness of nothingness and everything. Finally, I found the nerve to face the black box Dr. Roop had given me. I took off the lid and saw that the box contained 2 pieces of paper, one small one and one large one, and a black cylinder, like the one they had used to inject nanites. The small paper contained a series of blocky hieroglyphics, all strange lines and right angles, printed by hand with a thick red ink. I shook my head, and my eyes squeezed shut. What was the point in giving me a note to read when I wasn't going to be able to read it? Still, the script was beautiful, and it was a message from my friend, even if I couldn't read it. I opened my eyes to look at it again. But this time the sharp script was gone. It had changed in those few seconds to English. I didn't know how, but for the moment I didn't care. All it said was,
"This was in Tamret's room, addressed to you. Your friend, Dr. Roop."
one last message from Tamret. I held the paper in my hand for a long time, fearing what it might say, savoring the thought of one more communication from her, and dreading the knowledge that it would be my last. Most of all, I feared I'd be unable to read it. Finally, I summoned my courage and unfolded it, and saw my translator was still working.
"Zeke, if you're reading this, things have gone badly, and I'm sorry for that. I wanted more than anything else for us to be together, but if you're looking at these words, that means we won't be. If you need what the box contains, then your planet hasn't made its way into the Confederation. If I'm not giving it to you myself, it means that I'm dead or gone against my will. You probably never noticed that the locket your mother gave you disappeared one night. I needed the genetic information in her hair to hack into the medical database and make what's inside the injector. The nanites that will repair her cells and cure the disease. It was easy to do. It's shameful they didn't offer to do it themselves, but they have their rules. I have mine. I didn't tell you what I was doing because I care for you so much. And I wanted you to care for me, for who I am, not because I did something for you. Maybe that makes me selfish, since I could have given this to you at any time and ease your mind. I'm sorry for that, and I hope you'll forgive me. I'm crying as I write this. It's crazy. I know nothing bad has happened. Maybe nothing bad will, but I've seen too much to believe that. If you ever read these words, and I pray by the coalition of revenge deities that you don't, please know how much you've meant to me. If I am dead, my ghost will haunt you, and if you even look at another girl, I'll make you miserable, and I'll torment that girl until she throws herself off the nearest cliff. Tamret."
Now I was crying. And I wasn't trying to hide the tears, nor did they fill me with shame. I was crying because of what they'd done to Tamret. They'd taken her fearlessness and made her afraid. They'd taken her unbreakable spirit and they'd broken it. Tamret was the most daring and dauntless being I'd ever known, and they had condemned her to prison and torture and perhaps death. And the vastness of space made me powerless to prevent it, yet she'd found a way to cross that distance and give me the one thing I'd been seeking most when I left the earth. I sat like that, tears running into my lap, my shirt, not bothering to wipe them. And then I remembered what Urch had done. I turned the box over to look at the bottom. There, in the papery softness, Urch's predator fingernail had carved 9 simple words.
"It was fun. We should do it again. Soon."
Something escaped from my throat. Not laughter, but something grimly like it. I studied the words until they became like an icon, a symbol of all I'd been and so desperately wanted to be again. Urch's words were not a promise, and they were not a plan, but they were cause for hope, where there had been none before. My friends, the friends I'd always longed for, had not forgotten me. That was reason enough to take comfort. But there was something else, too. I read those words. They had neutralized my nanites, and my translator had vanished, but it was back. Was that why Dr. Roop had insisted on injecting me himself? Had he switched cylinders? He had hinted at some plan. Was that what he wanted me to remember? I didn't care how it had happened. I only cared that it had. I understood these messages, written in scripts I couldn't have imagined, in languages I couldn't comprehend. I could feel that my strength and agility, and hearing, and sight, and everything else was no more than when I'd first come to the station, but I could still translate. Maybe other skills would return. Maybe I could somehow unlock them. Maybe I could go back to leveling up once I got home. Perhaps I was not as powerless as they had intended to leave me. I looked at the view screen again, at the great ringed planet that was now a tiny disk against an endless canvas of blinking stars and swirling gases. I kept my eye on it until it was nothing but a memory, and I continued looking as if, somehow, I could have one last glimpse of the place from which I had been exiled. I wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. Then came a recorded announcement, in words that I could understand, telling me to prepare to exit normal space. This was soon followed by that familiar disorientation. Up became down, in became out, and I was flying and falling and spinning. But only for an instant, then the sensation was gone. The window, too, was gone, and my eyes fell upon the blank wall of my cabin, bland and gray and meaningless. The ship had begun to tunnel through space, and though I could feel no movement, I knew that we sped past stars and planets and across the infinite emptiness between them. We had ripped a hole in the fabric of the universe, and we tumbled down its great and impossible slide, racing towards a world that once, not so very long ago, had been the place I called home.